So much of why I do this is the excitement to democratize the beauty industry, make it accessible to anyone who wants to start a beauty brand to be able to do so, no matter their background or circumstances. And if you're choosing brand to be the tool for whatever bigger impact or you're looking to make in the world or for your family, then I'd love to be able to help you get there faster and easier. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to the next episode of the Beauty and the Brand podcast. Today, I'm going to share a little bit about my backstory and my top 5 learning lessons from building my beauty brand. So for those of you who may not know me, I'm going to share a little bit about my background. So we've all seen that movie, The Devil Wears Prada, where Anne Hathaway works at a high fashion magazine with the crazy office and the crazy boss. So I started out my career and it was exactly like that. I worked at Glamour magazine and it was glamorous and also not at times, but it was an incredible experience that I absolutely cherish. And I had the chance to be an editor. I had a chance to work on stories and interview star makeup artists or hairstylists, help in launching the Girls in the Beauty Closet blog. Basically, the digital side of Glamour magazine on the beauty side. And there was a really pivotal moment that happened to me. I remember I had the opportunity to sit down and interview a skincare founder. And I'm pretty sure it was Dr. Dennis Gross. And I remember that day I left work more excited than in months. I went home thinking, could I do that? I couldn't turn off this idea of building my own beauty brand. And I'd never considered it before, but I became obsessed with the idea. So fast forward, and months later, I was in my kitchen in my 300 square foot New York City apartment, creating these concoctions to figure out how to make fragrances when my then boyfriend, now husband at the time, came home one day and thought I was starting a meth lab because the scent permeating was so strong throughout the entire hallway on our apartment floor. And that's how my brand started. I decided, okay, I'm going to build a fragrance company. And then it became a real thing. So I brought on contractors. I got the vision around where I wanted to take the brand. And for me, the thing that I wrote on my mirror in lipstick, that vision that I was chasing, was to get my brand into Sephora. That was the mecca of where I wanted to go. That's what my team was stomping towards. We had our launch, and it was incredible. We were featured in The Cut, in Vogue Japan, and a lot of other publications. We had over 300 people attend our launch event and over 60 editors. We were catching success, but we were chasing that big whale. And fast track a little bit, we were chasing Sephora. But the thing that you put on your vision board doesn't necessarily always come to life. You still have to work for it. And it was a constant struggle. So maybe some of you can relate. During that time, we had our trademark challenged. We got rejected from a couple of retailers. I remember Saks and Bloomingdale's. We had to rebrand our packaging, which took forever and a day to finally ship to us. So lots of delays there, which I know many of you can relate to. And we worked our tails off. And then one March day, we got a phone call from a Sephora buyer to come in for a meeting. And I honestly thought it was a joke. I was like, where's Ashton? I thought it was a prank call. And it wasn't. The buyer said, we think you're doing something really innovative, something different, and we'd love to have you fly out to San Francisco for a meeting with our buying team. So we were super stoked. Like, yes, we're totally doing it, but also shoot, like we need to pull a presentation together. So you realize you still have to jump through the hoops to present at the meeting. And then the meeting comes with another meeting and other things and other requirements. And I honestly still didn't think that it would happen. But let me tell you, the day I walked into a Sephora store in Times Square, actually very close to where I'm filming this right now, and saw my brand on that fragrance shelf with all of the fancy lights all lit up and people squirting fragrance. When I saw my product on that acrylic stand, like I did that, we did that, we made it happen. Like, it was real. We were a husband and wife team. We took no institutional funding, and we were young 20 somethings, and being able to see that hard work pay off was just absolutely incredible. And I get excited talking about this because, I know that's probably true for you too. In your mind, there's your version of Sephora that you're chasing, this vision that you have. And that's what lights me up in working with private clients, understanding and unlocking what their version of Sephora is. That's what gets me super excited, because seeing their vision materialize, that's everything. And at around the same time, we started to put a lot of emphasis on DTC and really leaned into SEO, content marketing, email, and influencer marketing. And when I started to work on the DTC brand strategy and pulling through, our marketing, and, kind of all of the work we'd done previously on positioning and targeting customer, things started to really fall into place. So influencers started reaching out to us. When we sent out our line sheets and order forms, the process would go so much smoother instead of having to wait months and months. We became a magnet for the kind of people who had influence to help us amplify our message. And instead of constantly pushing and pushing and pushing, all of that exertion, the strain, the force, all of that suddenly, started to become a lot easier. Well, I wouldn't say suddenly, because it was obviously a long work in progress, but it started to become easier. So what I want to ask you is, what if you didn't have to work so hard to get yourself out there? Like, what if you had a brand that people just came to you? If you just started, if you're just getting started with your business, with your brand, does the sheer volume of work, the jumping up and down to get more people to pay attention, the overwhelm is a lot sometimes. So my question to you is, like, what if you could have people chasing you down instead of you chasing them down? Like, if raving fans of your business became champions talking about your business to everyone, and you didn't have to constantly be putting money into advertising and trade shows, and your customers were actually the tool and the asset for marketing. More than anything, as brand founders, we are already wearing so many hats, and it has to be easier. We have all these tools at our fingertips, but there needs to be an easier path to knowing which tools do we even use if I'm not able to do an omni-channel approach because I have a very small team or it's just me. So that's what I do. This is what starts to happen when you start to really understand how to powerfully position your brand for profitability. I'm going to share a little bit more about that later as one of my number one lessons in building my business and my brand. So fast forward, we built this incredible brand that we were proud of. I started having people reaching out to me, seeing the success and growth that we had, asking questions on how, the heck we did it. And at first, I started answering those questions and doing favors. And then I realized I really love to do that. So now that's what I do. All of my time is spent working with brands just like yours, helping them develop those strategies I mentioned so that they don't feel like they're pushing and shouting, but instead they feel aligned to what they have to offer so that things just start clicking and it feels right. And you're attracting people who amplify your message. And I'm super passionate about this because people often think that the beauty industry is just, this elitist industry, but so much of why I do this is the excitement to democratize the beauty industry, make it accessible to anyone who wants to start a beauty brand, to be able to do so no matter their background or circumstances. And if you're choosing, your brand to be the tool for whatever bigger impact or you're looking to make in the world or for your family, then I'd love to be be able to help you get there faster and easier. So since starting to consult, I've worked with now over 200 brands, including brands like Menta Cosmetics, Mahalo, Arcana, Kahina Giving Beauty, Scentbird, Glamlight, One Love Organics, and more. I've helped our brand founders achieve their own version of success, ranging from big box retail partnerships, celebrity customers, national media placements, multi-million-dollar exits, and everything in between. And I've been privileged to work with big and small brands, celebrity brands, and everything in between, and privy to see their inner workings as well. But what's most important is that I believe the mission of helping beauty brand founders understand their brand strategies so they can achieve their version of cult status success, even if you don't have connections, you don't have a background in beauty or marketing, you don't have funding, you can still have cult status success. And so today, I wanted to share 5 of my most powerful lessons that I learned in building my fragrance brand, Nomatera. And this is actually a perfect segue into lesson 1. If the customer is king, then positioning is the queen. So positioning your brand is like that express lane in the morning during rush hour traffic. So I don't know if this is nationwide or worldwide, but in New York State, there's this express lane that you can take if you have over, I think, 2 passengers. And it's this lane that takes you right from wherever you're going, to New York City, wherever you're starting from to New York City. And you basically get to your final destination in half the time, which is awesome, right? And that's what positioning is. Positioning helps you really target and zoom in on the people that are your people, your tribe. Because generic branding that casts a wider net results in a total inability to hook your diehard customer and causes you to overspend, lose time and energy in the wrong places. So generic branding is, branding and brand strategy that tries to reach everybody and markets to everybody. In today's competitive market, if you want to build brand loyalty, you have to carve out your position in the marketplace, like your special, unique space. And positioning your brand for profit starts with defining, number 1, your target customer, their pain points, their desires, and how your brand fits into their solution, their specific solution. So that's the first step in positioning your business. And positioning is the thing that's going to allow you to kind of squeeze the juice out of your budget if you are, building your brand on a, bootstrap budget. And out of every customer you do pull in, turning them into, a loyal repeat customer and having them build that brand loyalty and community for you on a much larger scale. So by powerfully positioning your brand, it also allows you to sidestep a lot of like the salesy, pushy tactics early on, like ads, and there's nothing against ads. Ads can be really powerful, really great, and really a great tool, but it's something that can be added at a later point and should be added at a later point in your business after you've really squeezed the juice out of organic strategies and maximize them. And in order to maximize them, positioning your brand will allow you to do that. It'll help you cut through the noise, to create products and services and marketing campaigns for a very specific, well-defined group of people. So this is actually what we did with Nomatera. We narrowed in on our target customer being an on-the-go traveler who still wanted to look and feel good on the road. And we actually came up with these innovative fragrance wipes, and they were circular and they fit into this little sleeve. And each fragrance wipe, by the way, this is pre, the sustainability movement. So, this would be looked at, I think, through a different lens now. But at the time, travel and on-the-go lifestyle and on-the-go brands and everything that was sort of travel specific and on-the-go was really popping off. And travel has always been like a huge passion of mine. It's something that I've done since I was very, very young, even from when I first immigrated to the US from Poland when I was 1. And so, since then, I've just absolutely loved travel. So this was very much integral to the brand that we wanted to build, and built off of me sort of being that target customer and saying like, hey, I still want to look beautiful on the go and on the road. I still want to take care of myself and smell good. And there really wasn't anything on the market other than those teeny tiny, very breakable perfume samplers for people who wanted to travel with their fragrance. And this is also around the time of like, the whole implementation of like, 4 ounces and under. So we came in at the perfect time, like really, really targeted timing. And like I said, we created these fragrance wipes, and it was the circular pad, and it included, it was soaked with like 3 to 4 spritzes of perfume. So you would take it out of the sleeve, you could wipe it on your scent spots, your wrists and your neck, your décolletage, wherever, behind the knees, and then you're ready to go. And you could even like reuse that. Like if you put the pad back in, you could even reuse it later in the day, or then probably by the next day it would have dried out. But it was very user friendly and travel friendly. And it was very innovative. And that really spoke to our target customer, who was also a traveler, someone who was on the go, someone who was, but still wanting to stay fresh and stay beautiful. So, and then we also had these twist up fragrances that were in an aluminum type of component that, the glass was housed in an aluminum component. So it would twist up, and you could get, you could spritz your perfume, and then you would twist it back down, and the glass would be hidden. And so this actually protected the glass from breaking. It was great for travel. It was under 4 ounces. It's actually, I believe, 1 ounce specifically. And so it was perfect for travel, perfect for on the go. So everything we made was specific for travelers on the go. I think we could have gotten even more niche down, I'm sure. But this seemed to really resonate with our target customer. And then, we also made the branding with Sephora in mind. So we were very targeted in making the colors pop for on the actual packaging of our component. We made sure like the colorways of our fragrance wipes in the box were very much aligned with like what's Sephora's colors and what you would find at Sephora stores, so that it was a no-brainer for it to be a good fit when we, went to pitch them. And that's actually how we got, big box retailers and media right out of the gate. We had a number of different retailers reach out to us within a couple of months of launching. Anthropology reached out, Urban Outfitters. As I mentioned, we did get rejected from retailers like Saks and Bloomingdale's, but it makes sense. And at the time, I didn't realize it, but it makes so much sense, kind of looking back. Like, obviously, it wasn't the right fit. It wasn't the right look. The brands and the styles and the type of fragrances that those retailers were selling were very different than what the component and the style that we had. So, it's the lesson here is like getting very, very clear on who is your target customer, what is their pain point that you're solving, what is the sort of the end place that you want to be selling your product? Where do you want to be distributing your product? Is it in a specific retailer? Like for us, is it on DTC? Is it, you want to know, like we want to go really deep on the demographic, the psychographic, the behavioral aspects of this target customer, and then position your brand and your product accordingly. And so much so that I always advise this, that you want to build your product after you've done the foundational work first. So after you've gotten clear on, what is the bigger why? What is our mission? What are we building? Why are we building this? And then, getting more clear on who is the target customer? What are their pain points? What is the white space that we're solving? What what's missing on the market? How are we going to create something different? And then what is that really tailored messaging and positioning that really creates the bridge between your target customer and your brand? So I highly, highly always encourage you and recommend that you start with that foundational work first before you start creating your product, because then you're kind of having to like fit your product in backwards into the positioning messaging, instead of really allowing that target customer and the position to guide the product and the brand that you're creating. So moving on to lesson 2, follow up until you get the yes. So our wholesale advisor in our mastermind, Lisa Adams of the Beauty Matchmaker, she shared this really interesting statistic with us in a recent training that she did on pitching big box retailers. And the statistic said that 2% of sales are made on the first contact, 3% of sales are made on the second contact, 5% of sales are made on the third contact, 10% of sales are made on the fourth contact, and 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contacts. Most people will give up after the first or second contact. They might follow up a second time, maybe a third time, and then they'll stop. And yet 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. Like, how incredible is that to know that we have all of this, like so much more follow up to do in order to actually get a response, whether it be from media, whether it be from a buyer, whether it be from an influencer or collaborator or brand, whatever it may be. Follow up, follow up, follow up, follow up is the name of the game until you get the yes. So I shared earlier how we got, the call from Sephora to pitch them in San Francisco. Well, we did that. They liked our pitch. They liked us. They liked the brand. They liked the product. But what you don't know is that it would take another 2 years before we were actually on their shelves. Why? Because they wanted us to update packaging and pricing. Then there was another cycle that we needed to pitch to, because there are only a few periods in the year where the buyers are actually open to bringing on new brands. For Sephora, I think it's like 4 times, maybe twice a year or 4 times a year. For, other retailers, it could be twice a year. There's one buyer that we had come in to our mastermind who shared that like she covers like all of the major hotels like Marriott and Hilton, and they don't actually renew their categories. I think they renew their categories like every 2 or 3 years, right? So there are only these few periods in the year where there's an opening to bring in new brands. And then in Sephora's case, they go on to pitch the biz dev teams. So the buyers, select the products, and then they go on to pitch the biz dev teams, and then it's a whole process. So in between those times, there's a lot of radio silence, and then buyers leave. Like they literally leave their job. They go on to another job. So you essentially have to reintroduce yourself over and over again to the new buyers and repitch the brand or the product to the new buyers over and over again. And this didn't just happen. This doesn't just happen at Sephora. This, is pervasive among, a lot of different retailers, that there's like, they cycle in buyers, new buyers, old buyers go out. And so we were relentless in a kind and friendly way in following up until they finally gave us the green light. And so the lesson here is don't stop until it's a yes. Moving on to lesson 3, collaborations are your tool for bootstrapping your brand and getting in front of new audiences fast. So our fragrances were all based on different locations in the US. One of those locations was Washington, D.C., with the fragrance itself had a heart note of cherry blossoms, which are pervasive in that area. And when we were trying to get the brand off the ground, we decided to have a launch party in DC, but we didn't know anyone there. So we ended up tapping into the community by hiring a DC beauty influencer to host the event and bring her friends. And this was a really great way to just open up our give us the opportunity to meet new people in a location that we may have not had connections to. She was actually, remember who it was? It was Lara Ramos. Shout out to Lara Ramos. She was so lovely, and she ended up inviting, her, other partnering vendors that, created like DC specific cupcakes and like DC decorations and all this other stuff. And so she was able to kind of expose us to this whole new audience that we didn't have connections to originally. And additionally, we, hosted pop-ups in partnership with beloved local retailers, and we'd collaborate on pop-up shops with other DC local brands that had complementary products to ours, like clothing, bags, and other items. And this was a really great way to take a cost that, an upfront, space cost that would have, been potentially prohibitive to our budget, and break that up into, a fourth of the cost, because we shared the cost with 3 other brands. But in doing so, we also 4x the audience access and reach, because there was 4 of us, 4 brands, all of us, had our own audiences, and we would market the pop-up event to our audiences with shared assets. So I would do this with, with different brands, different collaborations, different spaces, different retailers, in all of sort of majority of the cities that we had fragrances for. And I would later do this again with a 3-month holiday pop-up in Soho. So where this is when we took it one step further. So in addition to collaborating with 3 other complementary brands, we also brought in other brands to sell in the shop so that we had multiple streams of revenue. So the point and the lesson here is the power of we over I have to do it all myself. I have to build this audience, or I have to build this list, or I have to do this. And you're wearing, all the hats, and you're trying to do all this work in a silo, and it doesn't work that way. When you're building business is built on community. Business is built on connections. And, if you are introverted, you do have to kind of push yourself and step outside of that comfort zone to, find your people and find your collaborations and find your partnerships in a way that feels good to you. And this is the way that we did it. We built an incredibly, I think we built up to maybe it was 8,000 emails organically just in that first year or so from doing these types of collaborations and partnerships. And, I would create the assets and share them with all of our brands that we would partner with, and they would share them with their audiences. And we would always be collecting emails at all the shows and all the, we would partner with different retailers, give them a commission split, and build our lists through these partnerships. So again, the power of we over I have to do it all. Lesson number 4, make it work. I think Tim Gunn from Project Runway said this first, but we absolutely lived and breathed this philosophy. There was one opportunity that presented itself that was too good to say no to. So I remember Entrepreneur Magazine was filming a pilot with an award-winning, acclaimed CBS journalist, and they asked us to be in it. And they wanted to film us in our lab, showing behind the scenes shots of how we created our fragrances. And we had just the month prior no joke, moved our lab out to Long Island, but Entrepreneur wanted to film us in Brooklyn, which is where our brick and mortar was and where our lab had previously been. They didn't know that we'd since then moved our lab. So knowing that this was such an incredible opportunity for exposure, free exposure, we said yes to the pilot. We said yes to the filming, like filming us in our lab. And then we literally rented a space for a month adjacent to our shop. We rented or bought furniture, or moved some of our like lab equipment temporarily to this space, like set it all up. Like I roped my mom and my family to come and help us in setting the space up to stage it as a lab, and so that they could film us. That included like putting up portraits and paintings and like marketing, and we had like shelves to display all of our products, and our entire, like, we basically recreated the lab in this space. And it turned out beautifully. It was a lot of hard work. We did this in a very short period of time. I think we ended up, maybe we rented the space for like only a week, actually, not a month. And because we were like, on a tight budget, and we needed to make sure this filming happened on this day and that they didn't reschedule. So like, fingers crossed that it ultimately did happen on the date that they had scheduled. Unfortunately, the show never got picked up. But luckily, we captured a ton of content from it, which leads me to lesson 5, squeeze the absolute juice out of every project, every task, every experience, especially if you're bootstrapping your business. Even though that episode didn't ultimately air, we had the foresight to hire a photographer and a videographer to shoot behind the scenes. And as a result, we got a ton of content and footage and proof from the session. And not only that, we actually bartered with this photographer, videographer, because she happened to have a jewelry brand. And because we were filming this shoot, this session or this episode for Entrepreneur, I ended up wearing her jewelry. And in exchange, she did our photo and video session. So we killed 3 birds with one stone, the episode, and captured loads of content for months to come. Another example of this is if you're, for example, attending a trade show or a craft show, don't just focus on the sales. Use the opportunity to take behind the scenes footage of you working your booth, and use the opportunity to do market research on your target customer. Test different storylines and hooks at the show, and watch when people lean in to listen to more. I'm always telling our founders, try to think of 3 ways to leverage an opportunity, not just the one that is the most obvious. When you're on a limited budget, you have to look at every project this way, through the lens of like, let me see, like, what else can I get out of this, this opportunity or this experience? How can I make the most out of this? We recently had a retreat in Costa Rica with our mastermind members, and in addition to obviously traveling to this beautiful location and getting to kind of see the culture and this beautiful place, we also, of course, workshopped. We worked on our businesses. We hot seated. We got feedback from one another. But we also leveraged this beautiful home that we'd rented to do photo shoots, not just with a professional photographer, but also with ourselves. We used each other as models. We used each other's stuff as props. We were able to capture behind the scenes with our phones. Like, we really, leverage as much as we could out of being in this beautiful location, but also a beautiful home that had gorgeous bathrooms, and many of them, so you could have all these different scenes with your beauty products or wellness products or health products. So really starting to think about the lesson here is how can you leverage whatever it is that you're doing, whatever, opportunity you have, and whatever you've invested in too, how can you leverage this in multiple different ways instead of just the one most obvious way? So these are some of the biggest lessons I learned in building out my beauty brand, and I hope they'll help you in building your business too. Until next time.